heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, I think that it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. This is the nature of those the president has surrounded himself with, including his family. And that is, it's been essentially a den of thieves environment.
So if you guys don't know, the person in this video is Joy Reid. Joy Reid was recorded a few years ago saying that she's never heard of anyone getting a preemptive pardon before. However, this time around, she has a problem, or she hasn't even mentioned Joe Biden giving preemptive pardons. The reason I'm bringing that up is because that shows a level of hypocrisy that I'm honestly not a fan with. Today, we're going to be presenting other things Joy Reid has had a problem with, and Joy Reid's hypocrisy that she's shown so far, even in this election. Let's not waste any more time.
Still with me, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, and Jen Psaki. Joy, one of the things that is striking about this warning about the tech industrial complex is I think everyone feels a little headspun by how quickly this has all seemed to congeal in terms of Bezos, Zuckerberg. There was first Elon Musk, but this sort of kissing the ring. First, it's like, we're changing our policies, but also we're going to be an inauguration, and we're going to throw him an inauguration ball. We're going to give him money, and then Melania is going to get a deal. Like, suddenly this sort of vision of what this could like an oligarchy, not in some metaphorical sense, but in the very real and recognizable sense of like a few guys and the head of the country.
Right. And the question is, who owns the ring? Because it's not quite clear that Trump is the owner of it. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, when they're sitting on that dais, they're going to be sitting in a position of tremendous power over him. One of the other pieces of news, Rachel mentioned him, Biden making news. He said we should ban members of Congress from trading in stock while in office. One of the sort of dirty little secrets is the oligarchy was already here. Like America has sort of been hurtling toward oligarchy from the very beginning, when it was a few plantation owners and everyone else couldn't vote, right? Even white men without land couldn't vote. And we've been sort of trying to pull ourselves away from it. And the 20th century, which is the century that so offends Leonard Leo and Sam Alito and others, the 20th century was the era, the American century, when America pulled itself back from this notion of oligarchy to an incredible extent, invented a middle class. The things President Biden was talking.
The thing that makes this a little hypocritical is the fact that Nancy Pelosi is one of the richest senators ever, and no one says anything to her. And she's a Democratic Party. She's one of the richest senators ever. How did you have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of wealth? No one ever mentions it or comments on it. However, when Donald Trump gets in office, all of a sudden, America is an oligarchy. America's an oligarchy. They're all corrupt, evil billionaires and millionaires. Where was this discussion just a few months ago when the people were saying that they couldn't afford groceries or they couldn't pay their bills and they needed more money, and that, well, I don't know where their money is going? The Democratic side kind of ignored it until right now.
Talking about in that first 9 minutes, those are the things that the 20th century built when we beat back the robber barons and beat back the trust and established an income tax, which didn't exist until the 20th century, established women's rights, civil rights, immigrant rights. That's the 20th century. And these oligarchs they've always been there. Who do you think was paying for, Rush Limbaugh? He was a very wealthy man. Fox is owned by an oligarch. Who do they think is funding the Ben Shapiro and other podcasts? The oligarchy's been hidden in the background the whole time. And Biden is this pivot president as America is hurtling towards sort of falling in love with these rich tech gods, these tech bros. Then you have Biden sort of sandwiched in the middle of Trump, and Trump trying to go the oligarch way the first time with some hurdles, and then Biden offering this small pivot where suddenly labor is getting wins. Right? Where he's standing on picket lines, where you're suddenly seeing unions come back, and you're seeing him say, no, we're going to build our bridges, our roads, stuff that regular folks can enjoy. You have this pivot, and then we're going back. He is that wedge that was between us and an oligarchy we've been hurtling toward for a very long time. The repeal of the 20th century is what's happening in this country. And Biden tried to hold the dam together. And now he's walking away, but he's saying you still have to try to hold the line.
Mm-hmm.
Jen,
I think she's being extremely hypocritical here. Biden is extremely wealthy, and he didn't mention anything of an oligarchy for the past 40 years until his last day after he pardoned his whole family. That's just the facts. Have you guys ever heard of Biden mentioning an oligarchy until 2025? He's been in office. He was the vice president to Barack Obama since 2008. Nobody mentioned an oligarchy. It's been that 2008 was almost 20 years ago. So now you mention an oligarchy years later once you found out you lost the race. Come on, and you're trying to basically give him the credit for this?
I think one of the defining features of the Biden presidency, which was on display in this speech, is the substantive success and the political shortcomings. I mean, and I just say that as, just a reference to the approval rating and, what ended up happening in the election. How do you think about that? How do you think he thinks about it? How did you see that tonight on the speech?
I know he is deeply frustrated about it. I think for good reason, that he has not received the acknowledgement of what he's accomplished economically and what he's done for the country as it relates to the climate agenda and a lot of progressive domestic policies. And I know you've talked about this, Chris. All of us have talked about this, and that is frustrating, which is why I also think it took a tremendous amount of self-restraint not to use this speech as an opportunity to tell the country all of the things that he did for the progressive domestic policy agenda. And that meant that also means that everything he outlined there, the warning to the country about oligarchs, about power in the hands of a few, about the tech industrial complex, and his hope and call for the American people to step up and stand guard and stand up for what makes us who we are, is more important to him than getting credit for what he's accomplished in this moment. And that tells you a great deal, because every president wants credit. They did have one line in here, Chris, where he said, it's going to take some time to feel the impact. The seeds are planted, which is how they have been messaging. And I think there is a truth to this, in the sense that inflation numbers are coming down, and a lot of these projects and infrastructure projects are going to be built over the next couple of years.
Yep.
That's a challenging legacy thing to talk about, because we all know Donald Trump is going to show up with a bunch of his friends, and he's going to take credit for big bridges that are being built that are hiring hundreds of people, even though he railed against these bills. So that is a tremendous challenge. The last thing I just wanted to say, just as I was listening to Joy, and Alex made this point, which I think is an important one. It's not just Trump that is the cause of the rise of the oligarchy. We've all talked about this, I know, and Rachel's been the leader, as in of all things, on this point. I mean,
So Trump is the cause of the rise of the oligarchy. As if politicians weren't rich, or as if corporations couldn't lobby until 2016 when Donald Trump was in office. Are we serious? This has to be a joke, right? This has to be a joke. Donald Trump caused the oligarchy? Did lobbying begin when Donald Trump walked to the stage? Did lobbying begin during Donald Trump's first inauguration? We can't be serious. If anything, there's an argument that Biden caused the oligarchy. He's one of the oldest politicians. He's been in politics almost his whole life. I think that's a stronger argument than Trump caused the oligarchy. That's insane. That's a crazy thing to say.
Vance is like the Manchurian candidate of the tech industrial complex. He is 40, 41 years old, however old he is, he's young, and he is the future. Ben Shapiro is the future. Elon Musk, all of them are yes, they're betting on Trump because he's going to be president, but let's not be naive here. They are betting on the MAGA expansion and all aspects of that is even beyond a incoming president who is 80.
I will say, Rachel, one thought I had, and I'm curious what you think here. It's interesting for me to Biden to name this, and we're all going to see it on display on the 20th, right? So you will see Sam Altman and Jeff Bezos, if things go according to reporting, and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk up there. I think as ominous as it portends for American democracy along the lines of the president's warning, there is something usefully clarifying about it.
Mhm.
And there's something usefully clarifying in Joe Biden calling it out, which is to name what is happening in front of us and name it for the purposes of political action by citizens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I continue to think that the most important thing that President Biden did tonight was name this thing, but also connect it to why it matters and why it's a bad thing. Because one of the things
I think an important discussion is why did Biden wait until his last day in office, his retirement speech, to even mention an oligarchy when he's been in a presidential office for what, 12 of the last 16 years? Why did he wait until his literal last day in office to mention this? And why are you defending it? You're happy that Biden has been in office for 12 of the last 16 years and has not mentioned that word one time and waits until his last day where he's about to retire on a beach somewhere? You're happy. That's insane. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's LFR JoJo. Make sure you subscribe and like, and I'll see you guys later.